Okay, let's go back here and my YouTube page, which is a thing of beauty, as I have often said. Let's start a little background music. And tonight I'm going to start off with a review of the movie Dungeons and Dragons. And thanks for looking in. Now, we just got back about a half hour or so ago from going to see this movie, my boys and I, me and Techno and his older brother. And the best thing I can say, and I'll make this comparison again later, but the best thing I can say about this movie is that it was fun. Now it was a fun movie. I'm gonna do my review here as best I can without any spoilers, because I don't know, it's only been out for 4 days, so there are about to be people who haven't seen it, so it's going to be a primarily spoiler-free review. There are one or two little things, as usual, that I might point out. But first and foremost, this was just a good movie. It's well worth the time and the money that you'll invest to go see it. And I had my doubts. I mean, I've talked about this movie before. Wait, let me back that up, because I want to say this right here. Now watch this right there. All right, on the big screen, that moment was fracking incredible. Where you see that on the, trailers on YouTube don't really do it justice, right? But that movie was just gorgeous when you saw it on the big screen. But anyway, I had my doubts, I had my fears that the producers might be marketing this movie as just another means to, promote some sort of message, a social justice message, whatever. But no, there wasn't any of that stuff in it. It was just very well done. For those of you who played the game, if you played the game Dungeons and Dragons, even in the trailer here, you can recognize the sources, the material that came right out of the books, the source books for D&D. And all the creatures that you see, all the species, the races that you see, all of it is right out of the books. And in that regard, it was very true to what a hardcore player or just a player of Dungeons and Dragons would be familiar with, right? And it did have its share of humor. That's this particular scene. I'm going to run this trailer again, and I'll stop every now and then and talk about. But this particular scene, was meant for humor, and it's kind of like on a par with Marvel humor. Let me play that again. Oh man, who's this guy? Metal Gear Solid. Who cares about Metal Gear Solid? Well, all right, that was a great game. But anyway, so Honor Among Thieves. A couple of details. Now, this scene here is where they introduce. It's actually, again, it's a well-crafted scene. But this is where they introduce. Guys, I can't even remember her name now in the movie, but what her powers are, what race she's from, what she can do, in a fight. And again, this was a very entertaining few moments here. Chris Pine plays he plays a bard, right? And everybody who's played Dungeons and Dragons or any kind of role-playing game like that knows that bards are particularly useless. And that's been made fun of by the guys on Viva La Dirt League, especially, But he actually has an important part to play. This guy, let me back that up a moment. Okay, this guy right here is his character. You can also tell is derived straight from the source material. He's a paladin, right? He's a paladin, so he's lawful good. And if you understand what if you understand what the term means, lawful good, in context of playing the game Dungeons and Dragons, then his character is sort of perfectly portrayed. And there's a very subtle use of that toward the end of the film that helps set up a sequel, right? And it's very well done. It's very nuanced, very subtle, and it's something that I won't explain it all, but I will just say that it's something in concert with this character toward the end of the film that just beautifully sets up a sequel. It was very well done. And like I say, Chris Pine plays a bard. He's got his little harpsichord thing on his back or whatever. And other than, making plans, which was in the preview, if you saw the preview, he talks about making plans. But other than making plans, he's pretty useless when it comes to, the fights and all that. But now this woman here, of course, is one of the primary villains. They also use her earlier in the movie to help set up a sequel, but she is very effectively played, and her character is very effectively portrayed. And the way they present her in the film is she's not she's made up to be like the bad guy, and you can tell she's the bad guy, but she's not over the top. It's not cartoonish. She's very believable in in her evil machinations and why she's doing what she's doing. She's very believable. She's a very believable character. And the makeup, the end product makeup, she looks a little different than she did in the trailers, because trailers are often catchphrase. Yeah, thanks, Jacob Meister. I appreciate that, but she's just very well done. And in the trailer, her makeup looked a little, but trailers often don't look as good as the end product when it comes to the CGI and all that. But she's one of the stronger points of the film. All right, let's move on here. Now this, I don't want to talk about this scene because, again, like I said, I'm trying to be, predominantly spoiler free here. But I'll just say that it's a setup scene. It's a setup scene. And okay, there's a good. Now here's what I'm talking about. Let me freeze that for a moment. Okay. All right. So here's the same woman that I showed a moment ago, right? Only here she's in her true evil form. She's one of the Red Wizards, and she's performing her one of her doom of mankind kind of spells, right? But you can tell that she looks, she's not cartoonish. She's not over the top. It's not a character that would cause you to want to laugh at the way it's being presented. It's just, she was just very effectively done. All right. I'll let that one go. Okay, now this guy is, he's almost like the Sorcerer's Apprentice. He's part of he's part of the crew, part of the team that goes in to accomplish the goal that they're after. But he starts out the movie kind of very inept as a wizard, and sort of comes into his own as the film goes along. And again, that's the same actress that played in Thor: Love and Thunder, and I'm just having a hard time remembering her name for some reason. I can't bring up her name, but I will say this: in all the movies that I've seen her in, of all the films that I've seen this actress in, this one seemed to be suited, right? This one seemed to be suited for her talents. To whatever degree of talent you want to equate or grant this particular actress. And in Thor: Love and Thunder, people just savaged her performance in Thor: Love and Thunder. But here, again, this seems like this was tailor-made. This part was tailor-made for her, and again, it's entertaining, right? It's entertaining. Okay. The film has a story, a very distinct plot. Again, that's a cool moment, especially when you see it on the big screen. But the film has a very well written plot. It follows a plot line very effectively. It builds up toward the climax in the end. And another aspect of it, which you can kind of see here. Okay, look at the dragon in the background. Let me stop that for a moment. Okay. Now, here, this is the trailer, right? This is the trailer for the movie. And you look at the dragon in the background, and the CGI, you think, okay, that's got to be the crappiest CGI. It's much better in the film. And what is being done here, of course, is this was a statue. This was not an actual dragon. It was a statue of a dragon, which the evil sorceress lady brings to life to try to, crush these guys. And so, of course, it's not going to look like a pure stone dragon, or it's not going to look like an actual dragon. It's a hybrid of the two. And in the film, if you see it in the theater, it does look much better than what it does here, in the trailer. All right, let's keep going. Hugh Grant actually has he comes across as likable. This was a good fight scene. Anybody who's played Dungeons and Dragons knows what that is. Let me see here. Okay, anybody who's played the game knows what this is. This chess thing, that's actually a hidden monster, and I thought that was kind of cool. Again, I don't. At the risk of sounding redundant, she was just very well done. This character was just very well played, and these two. If you know who this is also one of the characters in the sort of the dungeon group, right? This is one of the characters in the dungeon group, and the two of them were just both of them were just very effectively, very well written, very well presented, very well cast, and all that. And again, they both of them just sort of add to the movie-going experience. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that before I finish. I suppose the best thing I can say about the movie, and you see these guys here, they're all, there's a lot of undead in the film. These guys they're undead, but they're not as undead as some of the other undead. That may seem like a strange comment, but there's a graveyard scene which is just fracking hilarious, and you would think it would get repetitive quick, but they keep the pacing, the comedic pacing of that particular scene, the graveyard scene, is was effective. All right, now let's go here. Let's see. That's not what I want. I want this one. All right. So this is its first weekend, Dungeons and Dragons. Its first weekend, 71.5 million, and this doesn't count today, of course, whatever it makes today. So this is just Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. $71.5 million domestic intake, right? Look at Ant-Man and the Wasp. I talked about the last movie review I did was Ant-Man and the Wasp, and that was such a disappointing movie. I mean, it really was. It was such a disappointing movie. I remember the difference when Techno and I went to see Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. When that movie was over, I was sitting there like, holy shit. I couldn't believe what I had just seen. I mean, I could not believe what I had just seen. It was so disappointing. Okay, not so after this. When this movie was over, all three of us it was just a blast. It was an absolute blast. It's what movies are supposed to be, right? This movie is what movies are supposed to be. It was entertaining. It was fun without being preachy. It didn't try to beat you over the head, with some ridiculous message that somebody wanted to promote. It was just a movie, and it was a very good movie. Well worth, you pay your money. It was like $13 a ticket. I paid $13 a ticket for the three of us to get in. Okay. I don't regret a dime of it. And that's really, that's what you want out of a movie. So 71.5 in its first million. And I think by the time all is said and done, it will beat the domestic gross of Ant-Man and the Wasp. I can't see how it won't. I can't see how it won't beat the domestic gross of at least of Ant-Man and the Wasp. And okay, Dungeons and Dragons plays no games at the box office with 38.5 million open. That's the first night. It did better than John Wick 4. I talked about John Wick 4 a little bit the other night. I didn't really do like a whole review on it, but I talked a little bit about it in one of my streams. But this movie did better than John Wick 4. And, John Wick is an established character. It's a franchise that a lot of people love. And this movie, this movie beat the opening for John Wick. So that's a nice feather in his cap as well. All right, let's see. Now here's where I guess you might count this as a spoiler, but it's not a big one. It doesn't like give away it doesn't give away the movie, it doesn't give away the ending or anything like that. But if I had to find any fault, if I had to, any criticism with the movie, it's kind of manifested in this scene, and in that sometimes there were a couple times in the film where the plot was predictable, right? It was predictable, and when this moment that you're seeing right here, when this moment occurs on screen, it's no surprise. And I don't want to go too in depth into it, but I mean, it was that the heroes of the film would find themselves in the middle of this Coliseum, in front of all these people fighting for their lives. Okay, it was no surprise. The first time that they mentioned in the film, the very first time that they mentioned that this event was going to take place, you knew they were going to end up there. Okay, so that's my one criticism with the film, was that sometimes it was a little predictable about what was going to happen next, but yet even so, it was it was still it's still worth watching. And I guess I can't. I don't know if there's this fight. You can see how tough she is, and he's just standing there trying to cut the ropes off his. He's the perfect bard. That's another. He's the perfect bard, right? In that he's useless in a fight, except that he's smart enough to make good plans that work. That's the evil MacGuffin thing, that horn she's holding. And all right, so there's really not much more for me to say about it, I guess, other than if you have not yet seen this movie, I do recommend it. I recommend that you take the time and go see it, because there's so much crap. I could use a more sophisticated term, I suppose, but there's so much agenda promotion that goes on in Hollywood anymore, and what comes out of Hollywood, and that it renders the films, it destroys any entertainment value of the film. That's one of the things that happened with Ant-Man and the Wasp. There are other films that were like that. And every now and then you get something that comes along, like Megan. I talked about Megan on one of my other podcasts. One night I talked about Megan, that it was a standout movie, and that you could go see it and just enjoy it without being preached to or beat over the head. The same thing's true here. This movie is free of all of that. It's sort of a gem, and this was I swear. All right, let me back that up. Okay, this fight, again, when you're talking about just being entertained, right? Being entertained in a movie, this was incredibly well done, and it isn't often anymore that you can go to a film and just enjoy it. And so the strongest thing I can say about Dungeons and Dragons is that you can go see this movie and you can just enjoy it. You can sit there for the 2 hours or whatever it was, and and just let your mind go. And you're going to see a lot of things in here that are right out of the game, the lore of the game, right out of the Dungeon Master's Guide, the monster manuals, all that stuff. It's all in here, all of it. And the scope of it is large enough to be attractive. That's another issue. The scope of this film, it's large enough to be attractive, to grab your attention, right? To grab and hold your attention. But it's small enough that it doesn't overpower. That was another thing that was wrong with Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. There was just too much going on. Most of it was CGI, and it was just too grandiose. This film manages to walk that line very well, to where there's enough going on to keep your attention, but not so much that it becomes a clutter, right? You can very easily keep up with what's going on and be entertained by it. All right, let's see if there's anything left here. Yeah, again, this was a comedic scene. It's in the trailer, so I'm not giving anything away here. But when you hear all the dialogue that goes into it, it just makes it all kind of better. But anyway, all right. So that is my review of Dungeons and Dragons. And again, like I said, even Hugh Grant is likable in this film, and I've never been a fan of Hugh Grant. I've always thought he was incredibly overrated as an actor, and anything he was in, it was a point against going to see the movie just because he was in it. But here again, he's actually well cast and well played in the part that he has. All right, I think I've covered everything. Yeah, I did that, and all right. So, what I will do next, if anybody doesn't have any questions.